Hey, what's up guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. And this is a new course about VueJS. So many of my friends wanted me to make videos on VueJS because there are a lot of things to cover with VueJS, and because it's a starting of a new year, so I thought let's make a course on something which is again very interesting, similarly to Flutter, which has gained a lot of popularity in last couple of years, and that is VueJS. So if you are a web developer or if you want to become a web developer, then this particular course is for you. So in this particular video I'm gonna explain each things about VueJS, how to get started, and then after this video we will also cover Vue CLI, and then we will start creating our projects like real world projects. We will use Vuefire as well. We will also use TypeScript so that we can see how to use TypeScript rather than JavaScript, and then we will work on many design related libraries as well, like Tailwind and Vuetify. So those libraries we will cover, and then also we will talk about some practices which we can do. So this I guess using that particular videos you will be able to develop something out of it. And I know there are not many good resources available which cover all of these. Somewhere there are like good design tutorials, but that does not include Vue. And when there's someone talking about Vue.js, the beginner's guide, but then they are not talking about the design part of it. So yeah, there are a lot of things which are missing. Somewhere it's only JavaScript, not TypeScript. So we'll talk about that as well. So if you're not familiar with anything which you have heard so far, then also it's fine. You just need a basic knowledge of HTML and CSS. You can ignore just HTML and nothing else, and little bit of JavaScript. If you know, then it will be great. If you're already excited about this series, then press the subscribe button right now if you're not the subscriber already, and also press the bell icon to get future updates. And what we are gonna build is something like this. We are gonna build a shopping list app with this particular design, which you can see. It's not the best design, but yes, this is still looking better than what we get by default. And you'll see that I will give you some cool tips that how you can generate this kind of design very easily using some libraries. Okay, and then having said that, this is just, as you can see, we have a normal folder public. Inside that we have index.html, and this is just a boilerplate which we have so far. Okay guys, and before starting this, I just want to tell you that Vue.js is, I guess, one of those frameworks which has gained a lot of popularity, and this because of the simplicity of it, and it gives you good performance as well. So if you are already not aware about Vue.js, or you don't want to try this until you try it yourself, then it's good. And if you feel that you already know the basics as well, then also you can skip this video. So but if you are someone who wants to get into web, then this video is definitely for you, especially with Vue.js. So we will start with something like, you can go to vuejs.org and just go to get started, and if you want to install Vue CLI, then you can do that. Otherwise we are gonna do that in next video. Anyhow, in this video we're just gonna use CDN to get Vue. So yes, and this is something which we will create. So let's start with doing this. And guys, before we start, also make sure that you have npm installed or node package manager. So you can just go to nodejs.org as well, and I guess here you will find, this is the website, and here you can just download for Mac or Windows, and then you will get npm as well. Why I'm saying this? Because we are gonna use npm. So in the root of your folder, what you are gonna write here, first of all, you are gonna say npm init -y, okay, which means yes. It will generate a package.json file for you, and that this is something which we want for sure. Why I'm saying this? Because every time we do some changes here, we don't want to restart our refresh our browser again and again. So once you do that, then just install something, let's say npm I global and live server. Okay, so you have to write this so that you can get a live server which will help us with we don't have to reload our pages again and again. So we will talk about a lot of tips like this. So I have already installed live server. So how that works, let's say if I'll write live dash server and then public the name of the folder, then it will watch it, which means whenever we will do any changes, let's say here in the body we have nothing, let's say we have a div, inside that we have an h1 where I am saying hello world, then you will see we have hello world. If I change it here hello world 2, then as soon as I refresh it, I save it, it gets refreshed already. So that's the beauty of it. So that's how you can install live server. And then to install Vue.js, what we have to do in the body, we can write a script here. So we can say script, so script source, and in the source we can say https unpackage.com/view, so that we can get view. And then we can have another script, guys, where we can have an instance of our Vue application. Okay, so how we make instance of Vue application, we just write new and we can say Vue and then brackets, and inside there we can have braces. Now there is something called an element which will say that which element it is actually targeting in the HTML. So if this is el is for element, and we can say hashtag app, which means the ID of element should be app. So like we have this div, if we will give it ID, okay, let's say app, then it will attach to this particular element. So everything it will draw inside this particular div. Okay, so that's why we are writing this. And then we have many properties, like first property is data, where we can have all the data inside this particular JSON. So we can say something like this name, and I can say my name Pawan Kumar. Okay, and then once it is done, we can just replace this hello world 2 using double curly braces, and inside that I can just write name, and you will see here we have Pawan Kumar, which is what we want, right? So this is about the data. And similarly we can have other data, let's say you can have age, and I can just say let's say 18, although I'm not 18. And then we can have h2 tag, let's say, and we are gonna say age, and then you can see we have 18. Okay, so this is what you have to do. But if you'll see the original design here which I want to create, by default this is not something which you are gonna get, right? This is looking very boring. So how we can do that? So for doing that, let me just open another terminal here, and what I'm gonna do, guys, you have to install few things which I'm gonna say. First of all, you will write npm install Tailwind CSS. So Tailwind CSS is another library which we are gonna use. Apart from that, we will use post CSS CLI. So post CSS CLI to generate our CSS file, and then we are gonna use one more thing, which is auto prefixer, which is again needed for generating our CSS file of Tailwind CSS. So once we are done with this, you will see inside the package.json we have 3 dependencies, although this can be dev dependencies, but that is fine. So Tailwind CSS 1.1.4, post CSS CLI, and auto prefixer. Once we are already familiar with that, then what we can do, we can write npx tailwind and then init. What it will do, it will create a config file for me. So when we have to modify the default settings of Tailwind, then we can modify this file. So we right now don't need it, but then we have to create one more file, which is post css config.js. Why this one? So that we can say what are the dependencies it requires. So we can say module.exports. Okay, you can just copy and paste from the repository which I'll create, so you don't have to learn it. Plugins, and we will add few plugins, like let's say the first one would be Tailwind CSS itself, and the second one would be the auto prefixer which we just installed. So auto prefixer. So these are 2 plugins which we want. Now what we will do inside let's say inside the root we will create a CSS directory, and inside this I'll create a file, let's say tailwind.css, or you can name it whatever you want, and then I'm gonna write @tailwind. So tailwind have few things, like let's say base, we want the base of it, then we want tailwind components, we want the components, then we want the utilities. Okay, so these are the three kind of things which we want from tailwind. And now we will go back to our package.json. Inside that you can see we have a script which is test. Let's change it to build. So what we will do, when we run the build command using npm, then we want to do something. So we will use post css. Okay, so post, one second guys. So we are gonna use post css, and then we are gonna say that the folder which is in css slash tailwind.css, so this file, we want to generate an output of this file to another folder which will be inside our public, let's say slash build and slash tailwind.css. So from this particular css which has this you can see 3 lines, it will generate automatically another css file which will be inside public folder, and then there will be a build folder, and then tailwind.css which will contain all the css related stuff. So now coming back to terminal again, I'm gonna write here npm run build. So what it will do, it will generate a folder. Here you can see I have a build folder now. Inside that I have the same tailwind.css, but this will look different to you because you can see it has a lot of things here. If it has some background colors, all the css is here, so we don't have to use anything like that which we are already familiar with. So if I search something like a container here, you will get a container. Okay, so it already has these things. If I say we can say text blue, so we will get some background colors for text. So we have a lot of things here. Now going back to our index.html, inside the head I'm gonna use this style sheet. So I'm gonna write a link for a css, and inside that in the href I'm gonna give the path to build tailwind.css. And now you can see my Pawan Kumar and 18 is not looking like what it was looking like, a bold character. And then I'm gonna show you something. Let's say I just want to change how they look. Then in the class I can say, let's say I want to give some margin, then I can say, let's say p4, it will give some margin. P4 means padding basically, not margin. If margin you want, then M4, and it will give some margin as well. Let me just take it little here. And then guys, it can have, let's say if you want to have something like a text color, so text let's say blue 500, then it will give you a text color. Then you can make the font bold. Okay, so yes, and it will make the font bold. And then if you want to increase the size, we can say 6XL, and you can see this is what we want, right? So this is something which we can do with Tailwind for sure. And now guys, I just want to remove this thing from here, and we will see here we want a shopping list here. So first of all, here in the view instance, I'm gonna just say that the name of the app, so app name, let's say, and I'm gonna say here shopping list. Okay, shopping list. And then guys, we will try to make something like this. So now we have shopping list. So in the h1 I would say it to app name, and it will have shopping list. I'll remove this thing. And then guys, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna give this h1, let me increase the size a little bit. This h1 I'm gonna give a class, and I'm gonna say the text should be in the center, and there should be some padding as well. So for padding I'm gonna give 4 padding. So we got some padding. Then I want it to be bold, so font should be bold. And I also want the size to be, let's say, 6XL, so it looks good now. Now I want it to be in the center, so text center. Okay, text center, and it's now in the center. And then I want to change the color to blue 500, let's say. So yeah, this is something which we wanted to create, and now we have. Now let's say we have some data as well, so we can create, let's say, items. Okay, items which we want to show in a card. So the items can be, guys, it can be, let's say, iPhone 11 Pro, and then we can have Apple MacBook Pro. Okay, and then we can have what else? Okay, so we have to write something like this, not this. Okay, items, yes. And then we can have more items, let's say Pixel 4 XL. Okay, so we have, let's say, 3 items here this time. And what's the problem? I guess we have extra braces. And now how you will display these items? Okay, that's the question which should be in your mind. So how I'm gonna display them? We can use something like a for loop. Okay, so if you're already familiar with for loop, then it's fine. If you're not, then we can have something, let's say v4. And so basically we have a div, we have v4, and then we have item in items. Then we can give a key item.id, although there is no id, so we can just say item, and then we can display the item. So as you can see, we have iPhone 11 Pro, Apple MacBook Pro, and Pixel 4 XL here. So this is how you write for loop. So v4 is the keyword, v-4, and item in items. So items is the data key name, and then for every item it will generate a new, let's say, header or something which you want to generate. Now this is done, but this is not looking like the best thing possible. So we will want to have a card like this, and then maybe we can play with things. So what I'm gonna do, let's say I want to give this color to this one, so we can wrap it using an h1 tag. And let me just try this. Okay, so item is wrapped in h1 tag, and then inside the class I want to give it some other color. So first of all, I'm gonna give it padding of 4 and text, let's say 3XL, so it will look this big enough. And then I can say font should be semi bold. Okay, and then text color also, let's say blue version of 800, and it looks almost the same. Now we want to wrap it with a card, so I'm just gonna copy this div, and I'm gonna add another div here, and we're gonna paste it here. Now to make it a card, we will have, so first of all we have to move it to center. So I can just say ml, which means margin left auto and margin right auto, so that it moves to the center. It's still not in the center for some reason. Okay, and also for the background in this particular body, I'm gonna say bg gray 100, so it does not look white enough. And for this particular card, I'm gonna give a background, let's say bg white, so that there can be some difference which we can identify. So now this is looking good. And now I move it to center, so I can give a max width to small, and yes, it is looking good, guys. Now see how easy it will be to round this. So I can use something called rounded, which will make it a rounded card. If you want more round, then you can just say rounded LG, and it will give more roundness to this. And then we can use shadow to give shadow, so shadow LG will give a little more shadow. So this will look something like this. If you want them in the center, then again you can say the text can be in center, so text center if you want this. And yeah, this is how it will look like then. And yeah, see, this is very easy, to be honest. And yeah, So now what I want to have an input field where I can enter something and it should appear in this particular list of items. So way after this particular div, what I'm gonna have another input. Okay, so this particular input field I want to draw, and then we will see what else we can do with that. So guys, what I'm gonna do, inside here I can just let me just delete all this. So inside this particular div, what we can do, we can have an input button. So input for text, so we have a lot of inputs here. So text is what I want. So this is my input, and can you see it? No, because we don't have anything. So I'm gonna add a placeholder as well, and I can say add item. So this is still coming inside our div because it is inside our div. So I'm just gonna say add item here, and this is looking like this shit. Okay, and now once I insert an item here, it should be inserted inside this particular items category. So what I'm gonna do, inside this data I'm gonna add another field which will be add item, and by default it will be blank. Okay, and then I'll tell you about another thing with Vue, which is we call it V model. So if I have a V model here and I can bind it with some field, so it will be a two-way binding. So if I'll change this add item, then this add item, this field will also be changed. And then what I'll do, below this, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna add one more h1, and I'll display add item here. So if you will see, we don't have anything here written, but if I add something here, then you will see there is some text coming in the bottom as well, right? If I clean it, then everything will be clean. So V model means binding to a particular data, and if you will change this data, let's say if I write something here as well, then also it will be reflected at both the places. So it will be a two-way binding. So now this add item is good, but how this fits here? Okay, this is not fitting here, so we have to move it to the center as well. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna take another div here, and this time I am gonna make it, so I'm gonna just put it here. Now I want something like this. So there is an input item with two buttons on the right of it. So we can copy the same code from here. So it will give us a card which we want. Okay, 1 second guys. So ML auto, R auto, BG white and all that. And I'm gonna just remove the shadow from it so that it does not look ugly. And then I'm gonna give some padding as well. So padding, let's say 6, and it looks good to me at least, or padding 4 should be good. And then I want some margin from the top, so I can say empty, and then I can give some margin, let's say 6, and now it looks good, in fact better than the last one. We can remove a shadow a little bit from here, and this looks much better, I guess. And add item looks good, but we have padding inside it which I don't want, so it does not look good. So we can just remove the padding maybe. Let's try this way, and yeah, it looks good, but there's a problem. So let me just add the padding because it's not looking that good. Okay, so add item is here with us, and what we can do inside the input class as well, we can give some padding so that it does not look that bad. And we can remove this padding from here, and yes, this looks much better because we can add the item from here. Okay, so now guys, this is what we have now. Because we want items in like aligned to the right of it, so we have to make it a flex. So once you make it a flex, you can add item to this, and then we can also inside this input class I'm gonna just make it full, so width should be full so that it takes the entire space as well, and it looks good to me at least. And yeah, this is, and then we can make it a little rounded as well. So for rounded, what we have to do, what's happening? Okay, so what we have to do to make it rounded is okay, reset. So make it rounded means you have to just write rounded here, and it should be good. Yes, it's looking good. We are not rounding the border though, but that is fine. And then guys, we also want to give it some border, so we will add border, and then we can add a border gray of 300 so it does not look bad. Yeah, that is fine. Now guys, what I want, whenever I add an item here, it should, once I press enter, then it should be reflected in the items, right? So there I will create a method now this time. So apart from data, we can have methods in VueJS. So I can say methods, okay, and I can say method name can be save item, okay, and inside the save item, what I'll do, I will say that whatever my items list is, this dot items dot push. So this is a method of array where you can push an item, and I will add this dot add item. So I just want to add this particular item whenever someone calls save item, okay. So this is what we have to do. Now how we will do on enter, so we can again bind it using v on. So this is a click event. So once so this is not a click event, this is a keyboard event. So what we have to do, we can say that we can write something like v on, okay, on which item you want it, okay. So we can say v on, okay guys, and then we can say where we want it. So we want it one second, colon keyboard key up dot enter, okay. And what we want to do, we want to call save item once we are on key up dot enter event. Now let's try. I'll write something here and I'll press enter, and you can see we have this item here, okay, as soon as I pressed enter. And there's a shortcut as well. You can eliminate this v on colon using @ symbol, which is the same thing. So if I'll write something here, then I can say Galaxy S4, and you can see here, okay. And what I also want, whenever I add a new item, then it should clean this particular input field. So here I can also write this dot add item is equal to nothing. So if I add another item, let's say this, enter, then it should be cleared, okay. Now every time I refresh it, it goes again to previous stage, because we are refreshing every time. So initially it allots these items only, okay. That is fine because we are trying to learn Vue. Guys, one more thing which now I want to say is that if you're using Chrome or Firefox, I would also suggest to add Vue extension. So you can write Vue extension for Chrome, let's say, and you can see we have VueJS DevTools. Just add it to your Chrome. One second guys. Yeah, so you have to just add it to your Chrome, and once you add it, then it will not work for your localhost. So what you have to do, you have to go to your settings, and then you can go to extensions, okay. Just don't go to settings. From here, more tools, you can go to extensions, and if you will select this extension, which is VueJS DevTools, in the details you will see here that allow access to file URLs, okay. So if you'll see here, allow access to file URLs, by default it will be off, so you have to on it, okay, so that it can work here. Now if I'll go to my inspect section, then here I can find view inside it, and now you can see we have root, and this is our data, add item, which is blank. This is app name, this is items. So let's say if I add an item here, Galaxy, let's say S11, then you can see this is also adding this to this add item. And now if I press enter, it added one item to this items as well, right? So this is how it works. And when we will talk about Vuex store and all that in future tutorials, then also I'll tell you how Vuex store works and all those things. And there are events, so like this. So right now we are not using Vuex, so you don't know. We will also talk about view routing and all. So yeah, that will be coming very soon. So yes, this is how you can test this thing. Now save items, we already talked about the methods. Now what I want a button alongside this add item, so we can have a button as well. So in below this input, I can say button, okay, and I'm gonna call it save, so that once someone press this save button, then he should be able to go like add item rather than pressing just enter. Okay, so this button class will be I'll give some margin from left, let's say ML4. It looks good now. And okay, ML4 looks good to me. Or let's give it margin from everywhere, or ML4 was fine. Yeah, this looks good. And then guys, let's give it a padding as well, little padding, P2 maybe. And then we can also give it some background color. So BG, let's say green color, green 500, because it's a button after all, right? And then we can remove the white color from this, because this does not look good behind this. Okay, this is fine. Now this save, it should be rounded as well, so we will say rounded LG. This is looking better. Now the text color can be white, so text should be white. Oh, this is very beautiful now. And padding, if I can remove it, that will look very bad. So let's give it more padding, let's say 4. Yeah, it looks much better now. And now if I click, nothing will happen. And I'll also open the console if we miss something. So if clicking here nothing happens, we will go to our view here. And guys, you will realize one thing, that we can have the same thing like keyup.enter. So we can say @click. Okay, so click is the event, and I can add here the same save item. Okay, now if I click here, let's say an item and save, then you can say it is saved. But the problem, there is one problem also. If I just try to click here on save, there is one more item inserted which is blank, which we don't want to do. Okay, so what we can do here, we can say if let's say if we could say that if there is no item, no add item, then maybe we could disable this save button. Okay, right, that's what we want. So we can have another property here. So then we can use something called computed. Okay, so computed and methods are kind of same thing. The only difference is that on methods you will play with something, on computed you do normal operations, which means you don't modify anything, you just do some operations to give another version of it. Let's say there is an item, if you want there's a list of items, if you want a reverse of this, then you can use computed, which is for small operations, right? You can say that. So what I want here, I want to check if the length of this add item is not greater than 0. Okay, so we can say not empty. Okay, not empty item. So we can just say not empty item, and here we can return this dot add item, okay, add item dot length, okay, is equal to 0, then it is empty item. Okay, so we can just say empty item. So if it is empty item, then we don't want to perform the click event, right? Or we don't even want to display the button. Okay, so how we can do that? We can have something called VIF. Okay, so VIF, what it will do, it will check if something is this, then only it will display this button. So let's say what we can say here, if it is an empty item, okay, it should not be this thing. Okay, so if this an empty item, then it won't display this button. Okay, so empty item, length is 0, and oh, why it's still displaying? Let's just check. Okay, what we are missing here? Okay, I guess we missed something. Okay, so okay, we have the opposite logic here. So it should not be empty item, so we can say not empty item was something which we wanted to do. So not empty item means this item should be, length should be greater than 0. So as you can see, now it is fixed. And okay, what's not empty item, and I can just write this. Yes, this is fine. Now if there is nothing written here in the add item, then save item will be disabled. Okay, so you have to write it something, then only your save item will be like save button will be enabled. And now if I go back to view here, then you will see if I just write nothing, let's say, but I press enter, then also you will see that I can I can insert data. So the same thing which we have to do, we have to do for enter as well, but we will do that later. Before that, let's create one more button for clear, so that we can clear item easily. So we can say something like this again, but there will be no if constraint as of now. And rather than save, we can call it clear, which will be to clear the items. And I can give it a red color, and we can say clear item. Okay, and then we can have another method here which will just clear the item in case if you want to clear this item. So yes, this is how you use method. So another example for that is this. Yes, now if I add something here, if I just want to press clear, then it will clear the item for me. And then we have save button as well, which can do things for me. Now let's say, guys, what I want, rather than so if let's say there is nothing here, okay, then we don't also need the clear button. Okay, or maybe we want to disable it. So how we can do that, right? So what we can do, we can have another item, let's say. So if it is not empty, okay, then we want to disable this clear item, something like that. We want to change the color maybe. Okay, so what we can do in that case, let's say we want to change the color, or kind of disabling it, right? Just for showing you something that how you will do binding. So you can say vbind colon to this class, or you can just use this colon to say that we try to bind it. Okay, and how you will do that is you can say that if not empty items, if this is not empty items, which means the items are not empty, the item is not empty, then we can use conditional operation here. Okay, something like this. Else we can show something else. So if you'll see now, we have a very different like, for class we have binded it with not empty item, and if it is not empty, then we will show something, but if it is empty, then we are not doing anything with the class, which means we are not adding any CSS. But as soon as I press something, then we will get something, right? So we can say we will copy this whole thing from here to here, and but rather than gray red, we can just say gray, and this will act like it is clear. Okay, so yeah, this is something which we can do. We can definitely say that we don't want to have this if button. Oh sorry, we can add if to just remove this particular button from here. So yeah, this will give us kind of the same thing, and it looks almost the same, although we have just more padding here. So we can, maybe if you want, we can remove a little padding from it. So maybe if you want, we can like this. No, so we need to actually remove the padding from everywhere. So we can just say p2 and p2. Yes, this looks much more better. Yes, this is better. So that's about this video, guys. We can now remove this header. So these are the normal operations which you can do. So we covered if, okay, we covered v4 and data items computed, and there are some communication events also, which I will talk about in the next CLI tutorial, where we will try to make something real world application. And then guys, one more thing which I want to say, let's say if you are not showing this vf, then you can show velse. Okay, let's do that. So what it means, that if it is not showing, then it will show. If that is showing, then it won't show. Okay, so vf or velse, it can be used together. If this is true, then this thing will work, otherwise this thing will work. So this is also we can do, so that you can just understand the concept. Also, it does not matter here. We could do the opposite of it. Let's say we could say something like we could change the order of it. Let's say this and this, and we can say if not empty. Actually, we need the save button in both the cases. In fact, so something like this. Let's say we can save it, but then you can clear it. So yeah, the opposite one was much better. So yeah, that was making more sense rather than this. So now we can actually save it. If you want to clear it, then obviously we want to show this button as well. So yeah, so just wanted to explain you that how that works. So we need the clear button as well. So guys, the most of the things are here, like v model we try to cover, if normal click event, then binding as well. So yeah, this is about the basics of VueJS. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, press the like button, subscribe to the channel, share with your friends, comment if you have any suggestions. Also press the bell icon to get future updates. Bye bye, take care, and see you in the next video, and let me know what's your view about VueJS and also this particular tutorial. So bye bye guys, and the source code will be available on GitHub. So see you soon.